So, Payton, I love it when two of my seemingly unconnected worlds collide. What I mean by this is I obviously get into things that interest me. Sometimes those things don't go together very well. But also, with the magic of the internet, I sometimes find these things coming together. And there's just nothing better. I just love it when this happens. There's a YouTube channel I've watched for many years. It's a finance channel by a guy named Graham Stephan. You might have seen him before. It's just, he talks about money and investing in housing market and economics and whatever. And I've just always found it sort of interesting. I don't really know why, because it's not like I'm really in that world, but I watch his videos quite often. And he actually does a podcast also that I've listened to. It's not like a podcast I listen to every week or anything, but I listen to it a lot. Mm-hmm. And I watch all kinds of YouTube videos. But for some reason, I've always watched him. There's also another YouTube channel that's in a completely different realm that I've watched for many years. It's a chef who goes by the name of Joshua Weissman. He doesn't just go by that name. That's his name.
Yes.
He's a food YouTuber. You've probably seen him before.
Yes.
He's a pretty big channel.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, he's a professionally trained in culinary school, and even before it was kind of the norm, he's kind of known for his like pretty high production value, and he's got good videos.
Yes.
And I've watched him for years. But one day, a new podcast from Graham Stephan came out with him, Josh Weissman, the food YouTuber. And I thought that was crazy because it's these two people that seem unconnected, but somehow they came together. And it was so interesting, and I just love it because I felt like it was made for me. I know that, like, obviously I'm not the only person who watches both of them, but it was like the last thing I thought I would see.
Sure.
And it was just an interesting podcast. I really liked listening to it. It turns out Graham was a big fan of his, and when he had the opportunity, Joshua Weissman's gotten famous and popular and made more money and wrote a book and all this. So they talked about money and YouTube and whatever, and it was interesting. I just love it when those things happen. But this week, another one of those things happened for me. I've talked about this on here before. This will not surprise many of you. My favorite book is Ready Player One. I love it. I have read it, no exaggeration, like I would say 60 to 80 times I've read the book.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
A lot of times. I just, like, I have the audiobook. I just listened to the audiobook. I would say multiple hours of it every week. It's just that thing that I go back to. You know what I mean? I just love the book. It's so good. And Ready Player One's actually like a book that sort of expanded my reading interests. Mm-hmm. Like it sort of introduced me to and it was like my entry maybe to sci-fi, something I'd never really read before, which now honestly is a genre I find is pretty much where most of the books I read are. But it's because of Ready Player One, I sort of expanded into books I didn't think I would read, and I just loved it. Well, another sci-fi author that I've really come to love is Andy Weir. Yeah. He wrote The Martian, he wrote Project Hail Mary. Both of those are actually big major motion pictures now.
Yes.
Project Hail Mary just came out, super good movie. He also wrote another book called Artemis that I really love. They're so good, and Andy Weir is, he other than being a writer in my brain, completely disconnected from Ready Player One. But back to Ready Player One. I've looked into many aspects of the book. I have been interested in other things specifically because it's been referenced in Ready Player One. Like there's all kinds of 80s stuff I didn't know about that I looked into because of that, whatever. Like I've gotten into a lot of parts of the book, Ready Player One. But there's one thing that, not for any particular reason, I have never gotten into, and that's fan fiction. And I think maybe it's because of the connotation that might carry.
Sure.
However, it turns out Andy Weir wrote a Ready Player One fan fiction soon after that book came out because he loved it so much.
Oh, man.
And I read that this week, and while it is short, it is so good. It was just such an unexpected thing to find where and it's because of the popularity of the movie Project Hail Mary.
Sure.
There was like an article I read where it's like, did you know Andy Weir wrote a fan fiction for one of his favorite sci-fi novels?
I feel like that kind of thing is becoming a lot more popular.
Yeah. But it turns out he wrote, Ready Player One came out 2011, I think. He wrote this 15 years ago. It's been out there for a long time. And I just was like, I can't believe, and all the things I've seen, I've never stumbled across this.
Yes.
And I just loved reading it. It was so good. And it was one of those things that was like, man, I'm just happy that this happened.
Yeah. I will say that fan fiction, I think, is becoming more socially acceptable in a lot of ways. So, for example, one of my friends, for another friend's birthday, got a really nice printed job of a Draco Malfoy Hermione / fiction fan fiction that apparently has become very popular, and got it bound and gave it to her as a birthday gift.
That's cool.
Because like people want to read this fan fiction, but they want to have it as like an analog, like a physical form.
Right.
So it is. It's came a long way since we were in high school.
I think so. Yeah. It's definitely. I think it can be a different thing that it once was. Kind of known for being.
Right.
But I think it is really, at its core, at least what I would look at it as now, is like just an addition to be able to exist in the world that you can't exist in any other way.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so I just love that I found that. I love that that's a real thing. And with the internet, it seems to happen more and more. And while things are certainly getting wild in the world, this is something I think we can all look forward to. So be on the lookout, everyone. An unexpected but very welcome collaboration is surely just around the corner.
Welcome to the Factoid Podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're going to tell you about it anyways. My name is Payton Gessel.
And I'm Chris Humphreys.
One of the favorite features of the house that we are currently renting is not actually part of the physical house itself. It's the hot tub on the back patio. I've had very little hot tub experience before moving here. Do you have a lot of like history with hot tubs?
No, like I love sitting in a hot tub, like at a hotel or like at an Airbnb or whatever. I've always loved that.
Yes,
but it's not like a thing that I've always wanted one. You know what I mean? It's not a thing, but it's not a thing I do often.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who wants to just shell out the money for one in the future.
Yeah.
And yes, Airbnbs, I feel like Airbnbs are perfect for hot tubs where you can go in it maybe a couple times on a long weekend or something and say like you got your fix and then you're good.
There really is nothing better than just sitting in hot water. I know that sounds super weird, but I just love it. I love it.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into hot tubs for a long time because the ones I was running into, they would be when I was a kid when we were on vacation in Florida, and we were usually going we would be going in like July or August. So it's 90 degrees.
Yeah, you don't want to be hot.
Yes. So it's that. And I would see it and I thought, oh man, but this is so cool. Like maybe I try it for a little bit. And then my sister would say, no, you're going to get all the germs because hot tubs equal germs.
Right.
And of course she's in school to become a nurse at the time. So is like very inundated with like health stats on things. So I would just never got to go in the hot tubs. But now that we're coming up on 3 years of living in the house and we're about to move out, we have taken as much advantage of having a hot tub as we possibly can. We don't really use it a lot in the summer. That one's a bit tricky. Sometimes like a summer evening, it might be 60 degrees out and it's okay.
Right.
But like the other 3 seasons of the year, we're probably using it like twice a week.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way for Amy and I to like chat about our day and like kind of decompress, have no technology out with us, and we can just like, we can relax and there are physical benefits, but I think there's also like mental benefits to having that sort of thing. Is it worth the cost of buying one? I don't know, but it's worth the cost of us occasionally putting some chemicals in it, like once every couple of weeks and maintaining one. But this is basically the extent of my experience with anything that I would call wellness culture. Do you have any experience with so outside of hot tubs? Like, do you or does Kirsten do anything that you would call like a wellness thing?
I don't know. We definitely don't. I mean, I don't know if this even falls into the category, but something I would do all the time is get a massage.
Yeah, I would definitely count
that.
The
best.
Yeah.
I love it. I think there's literally almost nothing better. But I don't do that now. I don't know. It's expensive, but I just love it. I do love it. But no, there's not, we don't like cold plunge or, anything like that. We don't do that.
Yes. And I really don't do, like I'm saying, I don't do much. Amy goes to the chiropractor and she will get a massage afterward. Like it's part of like the package or whatever. We got like a couples massage on vacation one time and I didn't really feel like it did much. So you're telling me, yes, that you like massage. I felt good for about an hour and then I just felt the same afterwards.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know that I don't know that any point in my life I've ever had so much like physical issues that it affected me into the future, but I know for the hour that I've done it, however many times, there's not a better hour to experience.
Yes. So the one that I've been trying to get a little bit more experience with, because yes, in general, I always feel like this stuff doesn't work, nothing ever works right, is I've had a little bit of experience with saunas.
Okay.
I went to 2 different saunas that were in Airbnbs, but it's like one little room that's in someone's house. There are instructions written about how to do it, but I don't know if I did them right.
Right.
Like in theory, I think I did them. And like, I'm hot, I'm in this room for a little bit of time. And then I kind of leave and I think, I don't know, like, did this do anything? So kind of the jury was out on if that worked either. So I've thought about, like, maybe obviously I could pay to go to a real spa or like a sauna or something. But I also don't feel like my body hurts enough for it to be worth it. Right. So yes, in general, this is not the kind of thing that I've done a lot of. But that all changed when I learned about the Schvitz.
The Schvitz.
Yes. Last year, my friend Jonah got invited to hang out in Cleveland with one of his friends for a weekend. And one of the things on their agenda was to go to this very private sauna that is called the Schvitz. And when I say private, it's essentially invite only.
Wow.
Like, I don't know if he could go back if he wanted to. I think it was like his friend pays enough and does enough that he can invite him for that time. And when he came back from this, our friend group had so many questions for him. So here's a little bit of a recount. Like, I interviewed him essentially afterwards and tried to get all the info. And he said, like, when you arrive, there's a guy in a parking lot who watches your car because it's not maybe the best part of town in Cleveland. So you have to make sure that you bring cash so you can tip that guy. And then when you go inside, you have to pay entirely in cash. You strip down to just a towel, and then you go in your sauna room. So you're doing kind of typical sauna stuff. And then when you've had enough of that, you go and do a cold plunge. And then after that, you go to the dining hall, and they just have steak dinners. They're constantly making giant steaks, and you eat as much steak as you want. And then you can just repeat the process, and then you can just go back to the sauna.
Do you eat in your towel?
I think so.
I've never used a sauna ever. Never once have I been in one.
Yeah.
But I could be tempted if I could immediately have steak afterwards.
Exactly, right? And I think that is a big part of the appeal. And like, I think it is like a large quantity of steak, but I do think it is still good enough quality that you're not. Yeah. And the idea that I think with the way like the packages work, I think it's like all you can eat as well, and just doing that as much as you want to.
I'm sad that I have to be invited to this.
I know, exactly. Yeah. And when you are sitting there, I guess they just have like a big, long, like cramped table, and like all the guys are just like shoulder to shoulder. And it was only men that day that were there, but I guess they have a ladies' day, like ladies' night once a week or whatever, where they flip it, and it's, yes, only women, no men. So this was all pretty crazy for us to hear when Jonah was telling us about his weekend experience at the Schvitz. And, he said that he really enjoyed it a lot overall. So I started reading into the Schvitz kind of on my own time. And I learned that this is inspired by like European sauna culture. And it makes sense because Schvitz means sweat in Yiddish. And I think it was some sort of Jewish community in Cleveland that originally had formed that sauna. And as I was looking into this as well, I thought that there were different franchises or something, but I think that like the Schvitz is kind of a style, and there are a few of them in America, but there's very few. And overall, a lot of them are closing. So in some ways, this is kind of, it's hard enough to get into that one. And the Cleveland one's apparently like the best one. But it is very hard, and like in general, these places, they're an endangered species here in the U.S. But since Amy and we did our backpacking trip last year in Germany, we decided that we needed to see what sauna culture was all about.
Okay.
And we knew we were going to be sore afterwards, so there was a good excuse of like relaxing our muscles. And then as I'm planning our route, I realized that we were going to be in the city of Wiesbaden, and this is known for their hot springs. This was even back in like Roman Empire times, that this was a city that people would go to because they had good hot springs here. So there are like famous bathhouses and things that we were able to go. And we actually rearranged our schedule in order to make it so that we could show up on the right days so we could go to it. So we went to what's called the Kaiser Friedrich Therme. And this is like an Art Nouveau style building from the late 1800s. It is beautiful in there. There's like big murals everywhere and like a lot of like tile, like tile kind of styled art. But there are a few things that you need to know about this place. First of all, clothing is banned. You cannot wear clothes in this sauna even if you want to. And I think it's for like hygiene reasons. They're worried about like bringing in like, I don't know, extra bacteria in your clothes. But they call it a textile free facility.
Wow.
and you have to change into a bath towel before you're even allowed to go into that main area. And the next important thing is that on almost every day of the week, this is a co-ed facility. There's a ladies' day, but like every other day, it is just all men and women all the time. So Amy and I just got to go together. We just both, essentially get naked together and sweat with a bunch of strangers that we do not know. So we're obviously newbies to all of this, but good old Kaiser Friedrich was there with endless rules and bureaucracy to make sure that we didn't screw this up. So ahead of time, I had to read just this huge list online of all of the rules of what you can and can't do. But in addition to that, the lady asked me if I wanted like the rules to take with me. So she gave us a piece of paper that tells you how long to go to all the stations. Because if you think of a sauna, like these kind of saunas I was doing in Airbnbs, there's one room. There's no options. This place had probably 15 different rooms that you could go to. There was a giant like middle swimming pool that was kind of the place that you wanted to like get a dip, and it was a cold pool essentially. And then surrounding it would just be like, here's a room, and they all would have like a different name of what they were. So this paper was like a 12-step process for how to have a fun time at the sauna. So our basic route started, you do a cold shower for about a minute, and then you go to a dry steam room, you take off your robe, you sit down for several minutes, back into another shower or a cold plunge. And then we did like a hot foot bath, and then we did like a body temperature, almost hot tub pool. It was like about 100 degrees. It felt very good. But yeah, after you do one or two of like the hot things, then you do your cold plunge or you do your shower and you come back. But right at the end, I made sure, Amy did not want to do this. I went to the Finnish sauna. And this is a 90 degrees Celsius room. So that's about 200 degrees.
Holy cow.
And it is so dry that like, it was what makes it bearable. So I'm sweating like crazy in there. I was actually on like the lower, they have like kind of riser seats, like made of wood, the way it works. So you're sitting above and below people. I was at the lower spot, and the first part I thought, this isn't that bad. And then eventually enough people got out and left, and I went up a row, and I'm dying.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of wearing my glasses inside. So they were starting to like burn my face.
Wow.
Because I said to the guy next to me, I said like, it was like 4 college students. I said, like, how are you guys surviving in here? And he's like, take off your glasses.
That's funny.
So, like whenever like in Ohio, it gets super, super cold out and like your nose hairs freeze maybe when you're outside, or like with facial hair, like my beard will freeze.
Right.
It was so hot that when I breathed through my nose hairs would touch my skin, and they would burn the inside of my nose from this, like from touching it.
Yeah, like, I mean, I smoke food at 220 degrees.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like, that's a very hot
It's like
room.
smoking me.
Yeah, you're essentially getting just smoked for a short amount of time.
Yes, 15 minutes I think is the max of it.
Wow, though, that's still like,
yeah.
I've never been in a room that's crazy.
Exactly.
Do you know how they heat it?
I think in general, it's with like some sort of coals, I think is how it's normally done.
I don't know. I was just curious.
Because like normally you put like steam on coals and stuff. There weren't any employees really around. There was one point where like a janitor walked by and it was just funny because here's this area with like a bunch of people all with no clothes. And then there's one guy in clothes who's the janitor, just like making sure things are clean. But yeah, I think traditionally it's with steam. I think some of the water in general in that town is hot, but I think you are using like steam heat from like coals or something like that. But yeah, like besides all the pain from that kind of thing, like it was actually really enjoyable. Everyone that I talked to that has done that sort of thing, they were telling me they would say there's all these health benefits. They didn't always say what it was. So I tried to look into it a little bit more, and this stuff is kind of murky in general, but there's a lot of conflicting opinions. Overall, though, most people agree that you feel better after going to the sauna. And I mean, that's kind of how I felt too, that overall, like I felt better. And the main reasons that I'm seeing though is about like blood flow, that like the temperature and the temperature shifts help like with your blood flow. And maybe it's like some of the benefits that you would get from exercising, but without doing the actual exercise.
And I'm all for that.
Sure. Yes, exactly. I think a lot of us are. And other people kind of pointed out that kind of like I'm thinking with the hot tub, though, it's a great way to like mentally relax because you can't really bring much with you. You are allowed to bring a book. I would see people that were reading books in there and stuff. I didn't bring a book with me because I was worried about like damage from, I mean, like I just bought a book that day and,
right.
and I did, well, it's funny because I actually had like the copy of the Turkish Ready Player One that I gifted you. I had that around. So I thought like, yeah, I could bring that in, but I don't want to damage it.
Right.
But yeah, like when you don't have as many things to stimulate you, like a bunch of screens and things like that, you can let your mind wander. I've also seen people mention that like saunas are kind of a group activity over there that you do with your friends. So you don't have a bunch of like extra big distractions. You go in with your friends, you have a good chat while you're relaxing. And some of the positive benefits from a sauna might just be that it's a social time for you to hang out. And everything that I've heard from people like online who've talked about the Schvitz is like, yes, this is a place for camaraderie. This is where like a father takes their son when their son is just legally old enough to go to the Schvitz, because I think you got to be like at least 16 or so. That like this is a social event, and that is almost part of the fun of doing the saunas. I kind of wish, like, if I had the option to go to a local thermal bath and just like sweat in a sauna every few weeks, I think I would consider doing that over the hot tub. And the sauna experience that we had over in Wiesbaden, it was really cheap, maybe $30 each for like 2 hours.
Wow.
So by comparison, I mean, there's a spa like a couple miles down the road that I looked up their prices significantly more.
Yeah.
And I know the Schvitz is a lot more expensive too, but you do have to factor in the all-you-can-eat steak that you're getting, which I have confirmed with some people when we were in Wiesbaden that no, they think that is insane that they have steaks. They said, like, why would you ever eat steak in a sauna? That's unsanitary. So, if for some reason you ever get invited to the Schvitz in Cleveland, you have to do this. I will probably never even get, to go myself. And if you do, please let me know if your experience is similar to what Jonah had told me. And I can't really prove that it's going to make you feel better afterwards, but the spectacle of trying something just way out of your comfort zone like this is definitely worth the price of admission.
So have you ever had something work out for you that you definitely didn't deserve it to work out?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question. I feel like I didn't deserve, I know we've been talking a lot about the house and that I'm currently renting. I feel like that's something that shouldn't have worked out for me in the way it did. It just timed up right. I had a lot of upstairs neighbor problems at a previous apartment. And right at that point was when the moment that, yes, this kind of falls into my lap is the same price as the renting the current apartment that I'm in. And it, without getting into it, it has also helped us like save up for buying a new house and like set us up financially, rolling in a way that I would not say that I deserved this, and it worked out really well.
I can agree. I remember being at your old place, fine place, but like
it
this
was
is
great.
Even without neighbor problems, this place is so much better. And if you think about like, oh, it's the same, like it's crazy.
Yes.
Very good place. And that's a good answer. For me, when I think about this, I have a couple examples different than yours. Mine actually come from college. I was in the ministry/religion department in college. And so luckily for me, and I really tried not to take advantage of this. A lot of my professors had more grace on us than maybe some other departments would have.
I guess it makes sense that a ministry department would maybe be a little bit more graceful. More grace.
I think they had more than maybe even they should have. But again, I can appreciate that. Like you said, I think it makes sense. I think if they're actually living by what they teach us and believe us, then maybe they should be a little more graceful.
Right. Now, I imagine if Olivet had some sort of law department, they would probably be the opposite.
I think different than that, right? But luckily, I wasn't in that. They were good to me. But in both of these instances, there are two that I'm thinking of specifically. I just decided not to complete work in a class because I was willing to accept whatever that meant. And for multiple reasons, that just was like, this is fine for me. In one instance, I didn't write a paper I had because I had worked out all the math in my head. It was nearing the end, and I was, to be fair, I was busy with other stuff. It's not like I just decided not to do it. I thought I'd worked up the math. I'd realized if I don't do this paper, I will still get an acceptable grade. I don't remember if it was like a B- or whatever. I was fine with it. Maybe a C+ even. I was fine with it, and I thought I'm not going to do this paper. But a few weeks after this paper was due, I think it was like midterm time.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks after this paper was due, my prof came up to me and said, if you do your paper now, and turn it in, and within the next couple of weeks, I'll just give you full credit for it.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
I said, there were two feelings I had. One was I was upset that I had to do the paper because I had already come to grips with like, oh, I'm fine.
Right.
But it was also like I wasn't busy anymore and I could do it. And so I did. I did
no
the paper. I turned it in. I got a 90 something. Like, it didn't affect my grade at all. I did not deserve that. That was very kind of him.
Yeah.
And so it definitely worked out in my favor. Should I have gotten it? No. Should it have worked? No. But it did. Second one's very similar. I was in a class where we had to write almost like journal entries over our reading every day throughout the week, and at the end of the week, the prof would collect that and give us. It was like a very small portion of your grade, but like you had to do it right. And again, as religion ministry majors, you're kind of expected a certain level of, like honesty when you do this stuff. And so some people, a lot of people would just sit down right before class and write their whole, they'd pretend they wrote it through the week and they'd write them all and they'd turn them in. And I wasn't the kind of person who wanted to do that. And I didn't have time that week. Again, could I have made time? I'm sure I could have, but I didn't do it all week and it was time to turn them in. And so when we came to class, the professor brought me up and said, hey, why don't you do it? And I just told him, I didn't have time and I just didn't do it.
Right.
And he was like, oh, okay, well, and he said, well, what grade do you think you should have? I said, well, I think probably a 0. I didn't do my work. And
right.
He was like, how does 85 sound? And I said,
wow,
I think that sounds pretty good. And to be honest, it was very graceful. I think he appreciated that I didn't lie about or like come up with some dumb excuse.
Yeah. Well, I tried really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I had the whatever, my blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I think he appreciated that I didn't do that. Yeah. I also think he was just being graceful and he was being kind. And so again, did I deserve that? No. Should it have worked out for me? No. But it did. We've both had things I feel like that we think shouldn't have worked out, but did.
Yeah.
And now for a moment, imagine building your entire life on that premise. That's exactly what Timothy Dexter did. Timothy Dexter was a guy born in the town of Malden, Massachusetts in 1747. He only went to school through age 8, which is very interesting that was an option back then. Again, I know it's a long time before now, but apparently that wasn't a problem. It doesn't seem like it was.
Right.
My grandma went to school till she was 15 and dropped out. So apparently, you can't. I think you are allowed to drop out of school now legally, but it's only past quite a while.
Yes, you are, because growing up in Amish country, I don't know if this has changed much since I was around high school age, but because we had enough Amish kids in our school district that they could go to their own Amish schools, or they could attend public school. And sometimes the ones that attended public school, then they essentially would stop going to school after 8th grade. Okay. Like you would be in grade school with them, and then you get to middle school, and then we're in high school now, and you say, well, where'd Sarah go? Oh, Sarah's done with school, and she's now like working in a field.
Right. That's the thing. Something. I feel like, and in their culture, they're needed to work on their family's things, right? So that makes sense. But yeah, again, I don't know that right now at the age of 8 we can quit school. Not on purpose, not legally, right?
Right.
But that's what happened with Timothy Dexter. He went to school through age 8, and from then on he worked as a farmhand and similar stuff to that. I guess it was a farmhand, did that kind of stuff. But soon after that, he started taking up the leather industry. And after being an apprentice, he started a career as a leather dresser, and he made leather stuff, leather goods, gloves, belts, etc., that kind of stuff. So very soon after being a career leather man, he married a woman named Elizabeth Frothingham. This was at age 22. And she was a widow with money, and she had already actually started. I don't know if it was her late husband had started a successful leather business. So this was something that it was good. He loved the girl, but also it was good for him in a lot of ways. And so this is what kind of gave him the initial capital, the initial money for him to kind of start his unlikely money-making life. So a little bit of background. During the Revolutionary War, the government basically printed this money called the Continental Dollar. Okay. And it was created to help fund the war. They used it in the mid-1770s. It was basically only made from I don't remember, 5 or so years.
Yeah, I imagine it's a great collector's item these days.
Yeah, correct. And after the war ended, since the money wasn't backed by anything, it was just created for that, it became worth almost nothing. It was just worthless. And it depreciated so much. It was so useless that actually, even at the time, there was a phrase that was used kind of around in society that was said, oh, that's not even worth a continental, they would say.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so that's interesting. But yes, basically, it's worth nothing. It's not valuable in any way. Timothy was married to this woman who was was already a little more wealthy, a little more uppity, a little more well-to-do than him.
Yeah.
She kind of rolled in the groups that he never was, welcome in necessarily, kind of in the wealthy realm. And some of their rich neighbors that he ended up spending time with, they kind of jokingly gave him this, like, just joking banter way advice, said, oh, well, why don't you buy a bunch of the Continental money now that it's so cheap? I'm sure it's going to be a great investment. Wink, wink. They're joking, right?
Yeah.
But Timothy brought this home, and I don't think he thought it was necessarily serious advice, but he took this to heart and thought, maybe that is a good investment. And so he purchases what is, in fact, a worthless item. He convinces his wife. I don't know exactly how he went to convince her, but he spent both of their life savings purchasing Continental money. And he was actually able to buy it for just pennies, less than pennies on the dollar, for very, very, very little
pennies
money.
On the American dollar.
Yes, because it's literally worthless, right? And everyone knew it, and it wasn't going to be worth anything anytime soon because it had no value.
Yes.
But he did this, right? And he thought, what an investment I have made. So for a bit, he was just sitting on all of this money that would essentially never be worth the money that he paid for. It would never even be worth the paper that it was printed on. In the 1790s, Alexander Hamilton was on Congress. He convinced Congress to to basically like settle up or take care of the remaining war debts, Revolutionary War debts that they had. And that actually included paper Continental money. Oh. And so they had this thing that came about where you could exchange Continental currency for current valuable federal treasury bonds.
Yes.
At 1% of the face value of the money, which is like, that's essentially that's proving, hey, this stuff's worth 1% of what it was.
Sure.
However, Timothy purchased his entire life savings worth of this stuff at significantly below 1% of its worth.
Uh-huh.
He actually became one of the richest men in his entire state because of this. And so people thought, what are the odds that this happened? This guy, he didn't deserve it, but it worked out for him, right? It made him a very, very rich man.
Right. It's not some sort of insider trading situation where he knew this could possibly happen. This is just...
No, there's no way he knew. He was, I think, trying, like, in some way, it seems like this is the kind of guy who's trying to prove a point to these people in this world that he doesn't live in.
Right.
Like, I'll show you. Them. And he actually did show them. And so with his newfound wealth and an attempt to gain maybe some respect in this world, he built 2 boats, ships even, if you want to call them.
Wow.
Which is interesting. And again, times have changed. I don't think that's what people would do now. You don't really buy boats until you're like billionaire status.
Yeah.
But so he built 2 ships, and he asked his neighbors and colleagues what goods he should trade with these ships, because he thinks, I can get in the world of the trade business.
Yeah.
And they all gave him advice that they were sure would bankrupt him. These stuff they made, again, more tongue-in-cheek type things. Like, why don't you do this and this, right? Whatever. So the old money folks didn't look fondly upon Timothy and his new money. You know what I mean?
I'm sure,
and just his personality in general didn't fit very well with them. So they gave him all this advice, stuff that they thought, surely this isn't good advice. We're just kind of joking with him. Maybe we won't have to deal with him anymore. So they told him to do ridiculous things, and since he didn't know any better, he did them again. But much to their dismay, again, it worked out for him. At the time in New England, they had a device. They had a thing they would use called a bed warming pan. So like this is like in cold weather times, they basically would like imagine like a skillet that you can close, and they would fill it with coals, and they'd put it in their bed at night and heat their sheets up with it.
Okay,
right.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just to make it more comfortable.
Sure.
You know, at the hospital they heat blankets up. It is actually wonderful.
Right.
So like I could understand how, especially in a time where it was a lot harder to heat your whole home effectively.
Yeah.
It'd be good to be able to heat your sheets.
I've heard of people in the modern day that will do like a hot water bottle kind of in the bed, or Amy has this like bean bag full of corn, and she'll microwave the corn.
I have one of those with rice in it.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And they make those heated blankets that even have like for a king size bed, they'll have sides and you can heat them differently and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a thing. People want their bed to be warm and cozy.
Makes sense.
And so they had this thing called a bed warming pan. It was a thing in New England, but it's not a thing that had necessarily been around the world. And so he thought, I'm going to trade these bed warming pans. And so at the advice of his colleagues, he sent out 42,000 of these bed warming pans on a ship to the Caribbean, a place where, as you know, they really don't have a use for a bed warming pan.
Ice cold down there.
Yeah. So instead of it being a huge fail, what happened was they ended up selling and repurposing these bedpans as ladles for sugar plantations, ladles they would use for molasses.
Yeah.
And he ended up making nearly 100% profit on his bedpans. He also brilliantly, or not, sent wool mittens to the Caribbean, tons and tons of them. But instead of it being a waste, there happened to be Asian traders who exported them to Serbia.
Oh, yeah.
So he ended up selling them for a very large profit as well. This guy sent stuff that had no business being profitable to a place where no one would want it, and it just for some reason worked out for him again.
Like, can you imagine trying to trade? You're from somewhere in Asia and you're trying to trade in the Caribbean, and you think, well, these are the kind of things I expect to show up, and then yes, they just have something so bizarre that they don't need, but would be great for you on your return back.
That's right. It's just crazy. And again, all the I can only imagine the wealthy folks that are his friends being like, "You've got to be kidding me! Not only is it working, he's got more money than I do now." You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just it really is hilarious. He then naturally moves on to coal. It's a valuable asset, especially at the time in history. This is like a thing that is very necessary, much more than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But he sent a very, very large amount of coal to Newcastle, England, which I'm not sure if you're aware, it was the coal mining capital of the world.
Yes, I do know a little bit about Newcastle. I rode on a train to heading towards Newcastle a few years ago, and I think there were a bunch of drunk football fans on the bus, and I was trying to understand what was going on, and I talked to a guy, and he explained we're heading towards Newcastle, and this is game day.
Okay.
So yes, but I did know that like that part of northern England is like that is coal country, because now there's maybe not a lot of coal industry there, and kind of in the same way that like West Virginia is kind of a shadow of its former self in industry, like Newcastle kind of had to happen.
Exactly.
So why would you send coal to Newcastle?
Exactly. It's the coal mining capital of the world. It's because his friends or acquaintances or whatever you want to call him, his circle of people, they basically dared him to do it because they're like, well, there's no way you're gonna. And so it's turning into this game of life at this point, I think, for this guy. And he says, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And so he sends coal to Newcastle, England, a place where they're probably producing more coal than anywhere else in the entire world.
Oh, yeah.
But wouldn't you know it, as his ships were en route to Newcastle, the coal miners went on strike. And they had been on strike for a significant enough time that by the time his ships arrived, they were actually desperate for fuel and paid an incredibly high premium for it when he got there.
Oh, man.
So not only did he send it to them, he made a killing on it. It just doesn't make sense. It shouldn't work out, but it does. And even with all the successes, all the wealthy, old money elites, they still didn't really consider him one of their own. And so he took it upon himself. If they weren't going to do it, he was going to do something about it. He decided to declare himself Lord Timothy Dexter. Gotta love someone who gives himself a title with nothing to back it up.
Exactly.
You can go ahead and call me Dr. Chris Humphreys.
Yes.
He also called himself on many occasions, quote, the greatest philosopher in the Western world. Lord Timothy Dexter. He actually bought a mansion with this after he's gotten all the money he's ever going to need.
Sure.
He bought a mansion and he decorated it with 50 wooden statues of all kinds of heroes. So George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. He even had a few statues of himself made.
Of course, why
not? One
of
which had the nameplate that read, Lord Timothy Dexter, the greatest philosopher in the Western world. These are, I mean, that's the way to decorate your house.
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? This guy honestly seems like a treat. Probably kind of fun to hear what he has to say.
Sure.
Not necessarily super fun to be actual friends with. I can understand why they probably didn't just welcome him with open arms into their community.
Yes.
As all who are a bit self-centered eventually do, he actually staged a funeral for himself to know what the turnout would be like.
Of course.
He wanted to see if anyone would come. And so he had a few trustworthy friends, a few people in his circle that were trustworthy, kind of send out cards and invitations to all the people and all the people around who might care. And he did let in on the secret. He let in his wife and 2 children. They knew about it.
That's good.
He actually bribed them, convinced them to act the part, to cry and to be very upset and to tell the stories. And it happened. He watched all this unfold from a secret hiding place. He got to watch what was going on. He saw his children crying and burying their heads in their hands, and he saw all the people, nearly 3,000 people actually came to this, right?
Okay,
Was a well-attended thing. They came to mourn his death or to at least be at the gathering. Who knows, right? I hear it was quite a party. There was, only the finest alcohol served, only the finest foods and whatever. So it was a big thing, right? So obviously this is something you're not going to want to miss. So he saw all this happening. But when he saw his wife, he says that she had a bit of a smile on her face, and he didn't like that. He didn't like it so much that he came out of hiding in his own funeral, and he went over to her in the middle in front of all the guests, and he beat her with his cane. So, yes, not the best guy I've ever heard about. Cares about himself a lot. But, yeah, he wasn't always a good man, but he was always an eccentric man. He cared about his wealth to some extent, but he also knew that being seen was sort of wealth all on its own. In 1802, so this is quite a few years later, he wrote an autobiographical book called A Pickle for the Knowing One. And this book it's a treat, let me tell you. Okay. You can read the entirety of this book on the internet, so just look that up, A Pickle for the Knowing One. And what makes it very interesting is it is completely filled with somewhat sensical, but also not, rambling about politics, religion, and his critics, but also in its entirety, there's no punctuation in the whole book.
Oh
it's
my
just,
gosh. Wait
just run-ons.
I follow some linguists out there online. Did he put all the punctuation at the end of the book?
Yes. So that's the thing. It's also got lots of misspellings in all this, right? It's crazy. But after receiving complaints about how poorly written it was, he released a second edition, and at the second edition, this is what you've heard. He writes at the end of the book, and this is what it says. This is a quote. I'm going to try to read it. It's kind of hard to read.
Okay.
It says, "Founder, Mr. Printer, the knowing ones complain of my book. The first edition has no stops. I put in enough here that they may pepper and salt it as they please." And then he followed that with the entire page filled with periods, question marks, exclamation points, and commas. So, it's the spelling of all that is crazy. But basically he says, there wasn't enough, so here you go. Put them in.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
He passed away in 1806. This was just 4 years before his death, and he left behind a will that was actually surprisingly normal and actually even helpful to society.
Great. Okay.
He left a few $1,000s to his town to give to the poor. He left a few thousand for the church in his community, and he even left money for a bell in the town center, which was a lot more useful then than it is now. But
sure.
He did. He took care of his family in it. He really did. He had a surprisingly practical and useful will, considering his life. There's always talk of if college is important in this day and age, if education is necessary. You and I both went to college. Yep. I certainly hope it's important. I have to think it was. Otherwise, I sort of feel bad about myself.
Yeah, we have a vested interest in saying that it's important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
But like I said before, I made it through pretty well, even though I shouldn't have. And Timothy Dexter's life is a perfect example for us that you don't need a business degree or knowledge in marketing to succeed in society. You just need to be dumb enough to send wool mittens to the tropics because there just might happen to be a group of Serbians passing through at the exact right time.
Thank you for listening to the Factoid Podcast. If you have a factoid that you want to share with us, send us an email at whatsyours@factoidpodcast.com.
You can find us everywhere you get all your podcasts or on our website, factoidpodcast.com.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.